On this episode of the Ungrowth Show, we're going to talk about the classic story of how Hershey turned a sweet software implementation into a sour experience for everybody, costing hundreds of millions of dollars and shattered holiday expectations. Don't miss it. Stay tuned. So we have the Braden grab bag here. Have you looked at the Braden grab of research?
I love it. I love this one. Yes, it's a good one.
It's going to be new to me.
Yeah, he always comes up with good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm just going to get into it today for the
Let's roll.
Ungrowth Spectacular. So, the company is Hershey. I'm sure there will be an ample amount of bad puns in this. So Hershey, we're talking about the chocolate company, right?
Yep.
Talking about the chocolate company. What do we know about Hershey? You got a favorite?
Oh man,
got a favorite?
All of the things. I don't know. Have they made anything I don't like? I don't know. Yeah,
Hey, did you ever see the thing, the food that built America? They were talking about Hershey and the Hershey, and the reason ours tastes like weirder, as opposed to other chocolate in the world, is because he had to use those cows in the field, and he couldn't get the chocolate to work, and he said that's good enough.
What are you talking about? No,
hey, that's why our chocolate tastes more sour than chocolate in the rest of the world.
I have not done that flight of chocolate before with other world chocolates, but okay. I'm taking your word for it. How did the cow come in?
Well, he built the town before he built like the chocolate plant. And so he had all the cows, and he said, we got to use this fresh milk.
Yeah. Well, ours is better, I'm sure, right?
Well, you ever had a Toblerone?
Maybe. Is that the pyramid one?
Yes. It looks like a puzzle. All right. Well, anyways, let's talk about this. Let's talk about Hershey. So,
all right.
An iconic American multinational company is one of the largest chocolate manufacturers globally. Mm-hmm. Sour tasting chocolate notwithstanding. Still kind of my favorite. Just we're acclimated to it.
Yeah.
Americans. Okay.
Yeah. Bunny rabbits for Easter.
Established 1894, Milton S. Hershey. The company is well known for chocolate bars, candies, and baking products.
Yeah, somehow they made it to the Ungrowth Show, so somewhere along the way, it was worse than sour chocolate and cows. So
right.
Yeah,
you'd think that would be the pinnacle of failure.
Braden would have never teed this thing up had it not been for...
We're going somewhere.
Okay, here we go.
So, in the late 1990s, okay, way back, the food and beverage industry was experiencing significant changes driven by advancements in technology and global competition and evolving consumer preferences.
Sounds like
technology of the 1990s. What do you remember?
Now, 1990, yeah, there may have been some of those. I mean, cell phones were just coming out. I had the big brick phone in the 90s, because I was in the Air Force, and we were out in Seattle, and I remember that we went to Radio Shack, and they had a bag phone, and that's what we ended up getting because we felt rich. It cost like $2,000, and no one else. I mean, I didn't know who I would call, but I just wanted to call somebody from my car, and it made no sense.
That call cost you $30.
Oh yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, I think you'd pay for like a bag of minutes, and it was expensive, and you would have one call, and it would be done. Because there was no long distance either, because you had to pay for long distance, so you had to call people local.
That was before free nights and weekends.
Yeah, that's true. Your minutes didn't roll over, all that.
Companies were increasingly investing in IT, so it wasn't that. I mean, we had computers, internet was coming off, websites, or all that kind of stuff.
Windows was coming out. Windows 95 was coming out soon.
Yeah, Windows 95. A lot of people would go back to it now if they could. So increasingly investing in IT solutions to streamline operations, enhance supply chain management, and improve customer relationship management. CRM. So they had to do all this to stay competitive. This was the wave. Mm-hmm. People are adopting new technologies. Competitors are doing it. You got to keep up. It's very similar to now, right?
Yeah, you have to.
I mean, what kind of new technology we have coming out now? It's like we look back at it kind of as infancy, but I'll say 30 years from now, what we have today is...
Yeah, it's going to be, it's changing so fast. I wouldn't say even 30 years, I mean 5 years from today. It's going to be so much different. But yeah, back, then, I mean, CRM was just now really starting to get some traction as far as, how do we keep all of our sales and all of this in one cohesive system that maybe would integrate into our finance systems, and because it was all very separate, still a lot of spreadsheets, still a lot of books with file cabinets, being kept that way. So yeah, this was, I think they were really on the cusp of trying to be more bleeding edge and try to, get ahead of the competition is what they were trying to do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if we were to make an analogy, this was a time when a lot of people are transitioning out of that paper and file cabinet and going to a computerized and server intranet type system, whereas now we're getting off of on-prem to the cloud, and there's still some people who are still on-prem there. So
yeah, this was back in the day too, where they didn't have a whole lot of these huge data centers that you would buy servers and things from. This was your IT guy or staff buying physical servers and putting them in a server closet. Or if you were big time, and Hershey probably had this, they built their own data center, which is really just this big room within their facility where they would just start. And these weren't even the rack mount systems back in the 90s. These were the full HP boxes that just took up a lot of room, a lot of energy, and that's how they were trying to build this stuff out.
Yeah, so these lessons that Braden has assembled for us, they're still applicable today.
Yeah.
Take technology to remove
they were a bit
yourself
limited by the technology they were using at the time. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so as we get into the elements of the story, Hershey, the beloved chocolate giant, faced a sticky situation.
I see what he did. Yeah,
He said
nice.
sticky.
Dad joke. I got it.
Yeah. 1999. Okay. In an effort to modernize operations, the company embarked on an ambitious project to implement a new ERP and CRM system. ERP. Talk to me a little bit about ERP system.
Yeah, well, ERP is enterprise resource planning, but mostly when people say ERP, they're really talking financial. All the things that come with a financial system, not just Quicken like with your checkbook. It's that, but it's for them really a global infrastructure that they were finally going to be able to stand up that would handle all of their financial transactions way more efficiently. So ERP systems, they're still rolling out. They've become pretty famous for getting botched only because they're incredibly complex and impact all of the different areas of a company, and sometimes they just get rushed, which is actually the moral of the story. I think they try to do a quick implementation. Quick implementation and ERP, they don't really go together.
Okay, well, let's keep reading. So, the project aimed to integrate supply chain management, warehousing, order processing, and promised a sweeter, more efficient future. So the plan was to deploy a suite of systems. That was SUITE. Braden did use the correct.
Not sweet. Yeah, he missed one.
I thought he was going to put quotation around it. He did not. He missed an opportunity, really. He missed a layup. Really. Sometimes you got to put the points on the board. So the plan was to deploy a suite of systems, including SAP's ERP software, supply chain management software, and Siebel CRM software. The goal was clear: improve order processing, inventory management, just in time for busy Halloween and Christmas seasons. Okay, so that seems like a red flag there. Let's rush things out, and it'll be perfect before our most critical time of year.
Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, we do. Well, we oftentimes put artificial deadlines on ourselves, right? But it seems like, how do we plan around that? I mean, is it just knowing, look, we can't risk this right now, this is our critical time, so maybe we delay the rollout for 6 months or expedite what? I mean, we got to be plan around that.
Yeah, and the planning too. I mean, what they did is they ended up going with, well, there's a few things happening. So if you were alive back then, as we were, in the 1990s, but getting close, this was 99, and so they're right on the cusp of Y2K, and so with Y2K, there was this fear globally that planes would fall out of the sky. Literally, that's what a lot of people believe, because computer systems back in the day, they were not programmed in such a way back in the 50s and 60s that when the year would roll over from 1999, many of these very critical systems would then switch to 1900. And then it wouldn't go to 2000 because it's just not the way they were programmed. So there's a lot of recoding happening, a lot of refactoring of code and getting rid of old system, putting in new. And that's kind of what they were facing. So it's unfortunate for them that their peak season was in the fall and the winter and right before Y2K. So some of the stuff they were doing was Y2K related, which I get it, but they also went with what's called like a big bang implementation, which is everything old as far as systems, they go away today, and then we turn everything new on tomorrow. And there's no going back. It's difficult to fail back. So Y2K was a big thing for them. But also the way that they chose. They didn't have to go big bang. They could have gone with a parallel, where you're going to have maybe both systems going for a while. Expensive. That's why people don't do it. Complicated too. Or they could have done any other sort of an agile approach. But again, back in the 90s, they just said turn it all off. Good enough. Turn all the good stuff on, and what could go wrong?
So you mentioned a couple things there. So the refactoring of the code back in Y2K.
Yeah.
So now we would look at that, and we might refer to that as application modernization. So people out there that have a lot of technical debt, they have apps that kind of still work,
Yeah.
and they maybe still kind of have a purpose, but they do prevent migrating to the cloud. It's not ready. It won't work there, all these kind of different things. So I guess one of our suggestions for that, or practical things you could do, is how do you recognize when you have technical debt that you've just been living with, and sometimes we just get into that mode, or just live with this technical debt and it'll be fine. But how do you start to recognize that and realize that it is going to come to your own Y2K moment? There is something that's going to force you to modernize.
Well, I mean, there's got to be someone in the organization, and a lot of times it falls on IT, that they think, well, IT knows that stuff. And not always. I would say almost never, unless someone has actually launched a project, not just to do an assessment of your full tech stack. That's one thing. But to keep that up to date is a whole nother thing. People get busy, they don't keep that tech stack updated. And what ends up happening, especially today, I'm sure back then as well, is that a VP in a certain part of the company somewhere in the world decides they need a new solution, and they have a budget and the authority, so they go out and buy something and they put it in. So like Shadow IT can now start popping up. Now you have new systems with new functionality, and maybe IT wasn't brought in, or maybe not at the right level. So one is just not even understanding what you have. So a list of products, but also what about the functionality? You have to go deeper to look at this and say, we have, what we'll find is like competing systems, where in their tech stack, so one, get your list, but two, go deeper and look at the functionality that these things are providing, because we find it all the time, you may be paying for 4 or 5 systems that do remarkably similar things. And that happens a lot with mergers and acquisitions, and they just want to get the stuff in and plug it in and it works. But now you're just spending a ton of money in areas that you don't need to. It's not efficient. They don't really work well together. And those are really easy things that you can start looking at and saving money.
Mm-hmm. So, if I'm reading this correctly, I think when they started to plan this, they planned this to be kind of like a 4-year. They thought this ERP implementation would take 4 years, which sounds, by today's standards, a 4-year implementation, I guess, although not unheard of, you could not today get away with doing something and then just turning it all on 4 years later.
Oh, no. That's that big bang thing. And more, like no one really, especially at a global scale, someone as big as Hershey would never do that now. The better agile approaches, you want to start seeing value and ROI way earlier. Where what we're talking about really in this waterfall, a big bang approach is, we're going to get in a room, we're going to do all our requirements gathering, and we're going to do all of our planning, which maybe that's year 1. And then we're going to do all the development in a closet and in a silo. We're not really going to show anybody or tell anybody. And then when it gets near the end, we're going to now start sharing with the company, look at this new ERP system. So with Hershey, when it was getting close, did they do all the proper testing and all the things that they needed to do, quality assurance before they went live? They didn't have time. Y2K was coming. The busy season is coming right before that, and it is as good as it's going to get. So let's just flip it over. So that's what they did. That's what a lot of big companies did back in the day, and and they didn't have the cloud. They didn't have the ability to spin up elastic capacity, meaning they couldn't just, we need more processors, we need more space in the cloud for data. And right now you could literally just go into a subscription with any kind of cloud service and increase those things like that. You couldn't do that back then. It was a significant expense to go out and buy new servers and space and memory and processing. And so they just kind of got themselves to a point where this is it. And so we don't do that anymore. You want these incremental releases, and that's more the way the cloud works.
So they had, we're talking about like at least 3 different kind of streams here that are all kind of working together for these storm clouds. One is you had the Big Bang.
Yeah.
They're working toward this major implementation, just going to reveal it all at once. That's one. Inadequate testing.
Yeah.
Unrealistic deadlines. Mm-hmm. So all these are coalescing into a major problem.
Yeah, they shrunk it too. I think originally the people that looked at it said it'd probably take us about 4 years, and they said, well, you got 3.5 years. I mean, it happens all the time, even with the projects we're dealing with, even today, is that there are corners that we sometimes are asked to cut, like user adoption or testing or quality assurance, or don't you don't do it. We'll handle these parts, and we already know that sometimes our customer, although enthusiastic about getting this thing done, they want to get it done as quickly as possible and as inexpensively as possible. We totally get that, but we don't want anyone cutting corners or thinking that they can do the things that they should do, need to do as part of our strategy, and they're not equipped to do it. So an ERP solution even today, I mean, it can take years. I mean, it's a great, big, huge, complex system, but it's just the way that they rolled it out. Yeah, you could see some real value way faster, and you were able to fail back. They had no ability to fail back to the old system when things started going bad.
Yeah. So the stage has been set right now, and Braden has set us up. He says it didn't go as smoothly as a Hershey's chocolate bar, and I promise you, if I see one more of those, I will leave this table.
I will throw this.
I will not sit here. I will not subject myself to this.
Well, good, because I'm going to look for an opportunity to start working some of those things into.
So as the date approached, they encountered numerous issues. Systems were, let's talk about the Y2K again, because that's sticking out to me. We lived through that. I remember what I was, Y2K, me and my wife, we went out and saw the talented Mr. Ripley. I remember that. That show ended at like 11:30, and then we went and stood at a parking lot. Yeah. And just waited.
For the world to blow up.
Yeah, and then at 12:05, the lights were still on, and we got in the car and went home.
Yeah.
And so, but it was a deadline that these people, it was critical to their risk management team that has to be done by Y2K.
Yeah.
So as maybe it's kind of comical to us now, Y2K kind of became a joke. I don't know. It's because we did a lot of prep work and a lot of mitigation that we didn't see any widespread issues, or maybe there was
part of it. Yeah. I mean, people were going to stay on those old systems had they not provided. Now, planes may have fallen out of the sky. All the doom and gloom of that part of it. I don't know, but there was a lot of really good work done in the years leading up to it that did prevent a lot of companies from having.
But that's just, we have we have deadlines today that are that impact the project that we're working on that really don't have anything to do with the project, right? Mm. I mean, so you have vacation schedules, or there's a trade show you got to be at, or and well, why would should that impact whether or not this entire ERP is? But people use these kind of these markers in time to say this is when the project needs to be done. Is there a better way than just to establish things like that?
Well, I mean, with proper planning, I mean, you really want to get in there and look at all of it, and you really want to work with, in our case, we're consultants. We come in and we provide the guidance and the consulting services for that. We love working with clients that allow us to do that type of proper planning, because you need the subject matter experts on their side. You need their time. Well, they have a day job. They're there to run the company, run the operations. So to steal their time in any given day or week to contribute in a meaningful way to a project like this, it's a challenge. And so addressing those things up front, letting people know how critical this is to the success of the company, for instance, and that although we're super talented, we can't do it all on our own. We collaborate with the client. We need you and your expertise in this business and the way things function to really make this thing go well. So that's one piece of it. I mean, the people they should take time away, but if you know in advance, you can really plan for that. I don't know exactly if that's what really happened here, but I can see some markers here where it says, they were just maybe really counting on the IT consultants in this whole thing only. And what we believe, and it's been proven to be true in many ways, that it's the alignment of people, process, and technology. It's not just the tech. There's a huge people component, which can be the hardest thing. So that's kind of what you're touching on. But that egos, culture, there's a lot of things that can get in the way. Working with some IT teams, they can see a vendor as a threat. Like, what's wrong with the way we've always done it? Why do we need this new system? Things like that. And that's actually a valid concern at times. So you got to work with people where they are, kind of help them through.
Well, you do have a lot of instances where you do have IT members who are geniuses in what they do, and they will have private conversations about this is an impossibility. This cannot happen. Yep. And they will share these things openly with maybe their project team, but that word will not get back to the stakeholders.
Oh yeah, because they don't want to say something that would. Now, I will also say this is in the 90s, and because of things like this is where organizational change management has really come about as a significant component to any kind of project like this, because it's communicating not just change is coming, it's communicating the reasons for change and why, and the customers get to participate in that. We need the change because of all these reasons, and you get the buy-in, and you want to make sure people align properly with what's coming, because then if you do that as a part of the build-up to the project, then you don't have that. Stakeholders are looking for that feedback because they understand the more feedback they get from their vendors and their employees, it's just going to make the project better. It's going to make it finish on time and on budget if you have proper OCM structured.
Mm-hmm. So we've got the setup there established. So as the go live date approached, Hershey encountered numerous issues. These systems were not adequately tested. Yep. That seems familiar. Yep. Leading to significant disruptions in order processing and fulfillment. Halloween was right around the corner, and Hershey couldn't deliver $100 million worth of kisses, Reese's, and other treats to retailers. Yeah. Inventory that they already had in stock.
Oh, yeah.
And they couldn't fulfill the orders. So that's frustrating, right? You've got warehouses filled of product.
More than frustrating.
And you can't get
you a lot of money.
So that's a $100 million hit right there. Yeah. So basically, it's a nightmare scenario for them right in their holiday season.
Yeah. Yeah, and it really also highlights the importance of having a rollback plan, disaster recovery type procedures. I mean, they survived it because I'm pretty sure I had Hershey products sometime this year. I think I had one. And so they made it somehow. They survived this. But back in the day, I mean, when you do this whole, again, big bang where you're going to turn everything off. So let's say I'm an order processor. This is what I do. I'm going to put this order in, and this is how I've always done it, and then it goes to this. There's a process to get it fulfilled. That whole thing is gone now. That they turned that off on Friday, and here it is Monday. And although I've probably been a little bit trained on the way, it doesn't work. I can't even maybe get this booted up. I put in the order, and it doesn't go anywhere. Those were the things that they were, because it wasn't properly tested. And we'll go back to the old way. The old way is no longer here. So you just got to figure out a way to get this thing fixed and online as quick as you can.
So this was a hard lesson for them. So a 19% decline in quarterly profits, all because of at the heart of it, a software implementation went bad. Yep. Now we look back at it and we say 1999. Obviously, they recovered from it. but this was something that, in a lot of ways, looking back, we can say, oh, that's ungrowthy. We could have probably avoided that with maybe some things that we know now. So
yeah.
let's look at some of the lessons learned. So we talk about the Big Bang.
Yeah.
So I know you've already touched on it, but avoiding the Big Bang, we talk about a more agile approach, CI/CD approach now. So you want
absolutely.
to touch on that a little more, the continuous integration?
And it's about doing all that proper planning and stuff. But in this kind of a way, with more of a waterfall approach, is that you would take all of this, like we said earlier, and you would do the project according to plan. Very smart, good people, and we would do this in a little vacuum over here, and then, by the end of the project deadline, you're going to now get all the things that we've been developing for a year, 6 months, with nobody looking at it, testing it, approving it. With an agile approach, you still do planning, but then you break it into sprints. And so we're going to do this, and at the end of that sprint, could be a week, 2 weeks, a month, different ways to shape it, but we're going to deliver incremental pieces of this that are valuable, that can start to get tested while the team's working on the next sprint. And so it builds upon itself, and so that you're actually seeing the value throughout, and there's visibility throughout. Problems and issues can be identified more quickly and fixed, and all that can happen before a rollout. Then you roll out something, the MVP, so it's the minimum viable product. This is the thing that's going to cover almost everything we want. Maybe not all you want, but everything you need to function. And then as that's going, you can continue to improve the product and the implementation even after it's live. So that were really helped here, because they would have been able to get this stuff done way more quickly. It was tested, valued, it was the minimum stuff, but then quickly they would have a plan to make it better. This was just off on Friday, on Monday, no going back, good luck, and it was a problem.
And also things we know now, just kind of the proper role of DevOps in any kind of organization. So we have our infrastructure teams working with our coding team, heads and hands working with the business team, so that we know that we're not going to strain what limited resources that we have, so we know what's coming.
Yeah, that relationship with business and IT has just become, again, way more critical. And where IT was always something you had to have back, especially in the days. This was like early internet, all of that was going on. That IT was a cost center. That's a place that you just dump a bunch of money because you have to keep things going. You're not really seen as a team that's providing a kind of competitive advantage. And that's really shifted now, where the technology is a key part of a business strategic growth, and it really has to align with the business. So if you look at the business side and what business leaders want to do, more and more they're teaming with IT to see all of those things come out to be fruitful than they ever have before.
Yeah. So Big Bang, that's right out. Let's not look at that anymore. Realistic timelines. So setting an achievable deadline and allowing ample time for testing and troubleshooting.
We still face with that sometimes, because, and we get it, because again, customers want, no one really wants to go, let's say, to training. What you want when you go to training, you don't want to go through the training, but you want the outcome. I can't wait till the end where I have all this knowledge and I've got my certification. That's what you want. You don't really want to go through the training part. People don't want to do big projects. They don't want to go through the pain of all of this stuff. So the reason that these things can get this way is that they're just trying to get there as quickly as they can. They've been living in this environment, this pain with everything. None of the data is integrated. We just want to get to the new system. So they're looking for someone, a partner, to get them there as quick as they can and as inexpensively, on time, on budget, all that. Again, totally get it. But then you start working with a customer at times and they go, well, you got 18 months and this much money, and you know it's going to be 24 months. So we've passed on projects because we just knew that you're putting it in jeopardy, and then we'll have customers go away and find a vendor that'll do it. And then many times they'll come back and say, yeah, that didn't go well, and we get to help them, which is good, but it just happens all the time. Yeah. They're just trying to cut corners where they think they might be able to save some time and money.
And that testing is one of the first things that this gets.
Yeah, testing, user adoption at the end. people very reluctant to do anything with it because they were never properly informed of why we're even changing. So OCM, business processes, if they don't have them documented, that happens many times. Actually, most companies don't have them documented properly, but if you have failed business processes, just putting in new technology doesn't make it magically better. You're just going to be able to do those failed business processes more quickly. And so, I mean, there's the business process. Those kinds of things usually get looked at when it looks at budget. And what if we scratched all this stuff out? Yeah, that's not what we would recommend. We're going to wind up here.
Well, and the same thing is when we're talking about the processes, that the third one we have there is kind of lessons learned is vendor and system compatibility, making sure that all of your components do work together. I mean, so a lot of times people will imagine that just going with a solution from one vendor that has multiple components in the stack. I mean, yeah, that eliminates some concerns, but not all. Obviously, you can go from multiple vendors and connect an ERP or an FP&A or a CRM. You can connect all those from different vendors. You do put different weaknesses in the chain there, but even having something from one centralized vendor does not fix your bad business processes to begin with. So making sure that not only is your technology compatible, but making sure what you're trying to accomplish from a technology standpoint is compatible with what the business needs.
Yeah, that's why we start with outcomes. I mean, what is the business trying to do? What are the outcomes you're trying to achieve? And then we start talking about other things like business process. But when you're talking about like vendors, with something like this, I mean, they had a few different, like a different CRM system, but these things can be made to work together. Integrations is fine, but we work with big companies, global companies that have multiple vendors. Vendor management has to be a part of it because, again, we're talking about people. And so if you have a Microsoft along with some other third-party systems, you may have multiple vendors working on the same project. So usually you'll have a unified project management approach, but beneath that, you've got these vendors, and you want to make sure that they're not just putting their solution in properly, but they're putting it in properly in a way that's going to work well with the rest of the team because they just can't come in and slap it in because it's going to have an impact on other systems. And so vendor management can become, it's overlooked a lot of times, but it would have really helped here as well because you could have, if you have 3 core solutions that's being implemented by 3 different vendors, they could all be set up exactly the way by the book they're supposed to. You could still have a failed implementation because none of these things are working together because no one thought, I probably need to get these 3 vendors in a room and make sure that they understand the impact they would have on each other.
So I'm an organization and I'm looking to, it doesn't have to be a huge platform that we're replacing. Maybe just some other component that maybe I replace this in a vacuum right now and it comes back to bite me 6 months or a year from now. So I guess that's my question is, next steps. I know I have to do something with a platform or a specific piece of software. I know I have an inefficiency somewhere. I'm looking to do something. How do I get started? How does TrellisPoint help me?
Well, TrellisPoint would help mostly with our strategic growth planning sessions because, first of all, if you have independent systems that are running and they're not fully integrated, that's not necessarily bad, actually. The way we look at it is that if it's not having an impact on you achieving your outcomes, then just integrating and merging these things together don't make any sense. So really it's us helping you look at it strategically, look at the full picture, understanding what your outcomes are, what are your goals, what are you trying to achieve, then looking at the tech stack, then looking at how do we match it up with requirements, how do we get the business involved, what capabilities are missing, which ones are duplicated, we may be able to get rid of. So there's a lot of things we look at. So that's the step, is to have someone walk you through a session like that with your teams so that you can get to the beginning stages of a strategic growth plan, which come with recommendations on, okay, how do I prioritize? What would I do first, second? It's different for every company, but we have a way to walk you through it.
All right, Mike, think we did it. Thanks again for your time today. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Any questions, put them in the comments. We'll talk to you.
Or call Braden.
Call Braden. He's got some more bad puns.
Yeah.
Right at a minute's notice. So
this one was sweet.
questions, leave them in the comments. We'll get back to you soon. Thanks, everybody.